In 1990, Capcom brought Magic Sword to the arcades. As a side-scrolling action-adventure game, it was a smash hit in Japan. It was later brought to North America, but didn't get the same level of attention as other games that came out around that time. Even still, it was a memorable game that left a big impression on me. The game is pretty simple, but it had some characteristics that were innovative for an arcade game. There are 51 floors of Dragon's Tower that the hero must get through. Chests contain coins and gems that give points, food to refill your health, and keys. There are 3 different types of keys which open different doors. The doors contain food, treasures, and magical allies to assist you in your adventure. There are also several secret doors that allow the player to bypass groups of floors. There are 8 floors with bosses at the end, including the final boss. The pacing of the game is just right, and I thought the designers did an excellent job of progressively ramping up the difficulty. You can really tell the difference between the first floors and the ones in the 20s, just as you can when comparing those floors to the ones in the 40s. Interestingly enough, Magic Sword does allow you to skip floors at the beginning of the game, in case you want more of a challenge. The cynic in me says that this was just a stealthy way of generating more quarters from the arcade, as the higher level floors were clearly more difficult and more likely to kill the player quickly. This was almost certainly an ingenious technique to benefit the owners of the cabinets, but thankfully it was voluntary. The main character has a magic meter that continually fills so long as he is not attacking. When it's red, he unleashes an elongated attack with a magical bolt, but when it isn't, it's just a standard sword swing. Epic full-screen attacks are unleashed when a magical book is found or whenever the player wishes to expend a full bar of health. I thought one of the best touches of this game were the short scenes following the characters climbing the stairs at the end of each floor. I don't know why, but this was just such a distinctive part of the game I remember quite a bit. On these screens, the game often presents tips and clues. Some of them are incredibly helpful, like, evil seems to fill the air. Yeah, what a useful hint there. Also, there's the good old classic helpful hint number 2. Let's go and be careful. Last but not least, open the treasure chest with care. Alright, even though some of these messages were obvious and corny, it was still a unique part of the game that I remember. Magic Sword received a port to the SNES in 1992. It was a pretty faithful port in most ways, but has one major drawback: the lack of 2-player support like the arcade featured. Otherwise, it was a very good game. Perhaps the best part of Magic Sword is the magical allies that join you. Hidden within the tower are several different types of characters that can aid the main hero. For instance, the ninja throws shurikens that ricochet through the rooms and kill enemies in hard-to-reach places. The cleric fires volleys of holy shots that home in on enemies. The big man launches a boomerang axe that comes back? Yeah, like that thing would come back again. The knight, who is usually considered the strongest ally and found only in the top levels of the tower, throws 1 to 3 spears that pierce through enemies. The player is limited to 1 companion at a time, and they become a big part of beating the stages. Even though you can't control the magical allies in battle, they're controlled through AI and merely aid you. I thought this was an awesome touch that took the place of power-ups in other games. They have their own HP bars and are lost when they are depleted. The allies were just fun to find and use, and each had different redeemable characteristics. They just made the game feel more involved and complex than it otherwise would have been. Honestly, the game's story is pretty cliche. On top of Dragon's Tower in an unnamed fantasy world is a Dark Lord named Drakmar who controls an evil crystal known as the Black Orb. Our hero, who is named, get this, Brave One, has to scale the tower and confront him before he can use the Black Orb to rule the world. In the meantime, he has summoned an army of ghouls and demons to vanquish any that stand in his way. From the name of the hero to the locations in the game to the story, it's all very formulaic. However, this doesn't detract from the game at all, because you can tell Capcom was going for a fantasy adventure that focused more on gameplay instead of the story. One of the craziest things about the game is that after beating the last boss, the player is able to choose whether or not to destroy the Black Orb at the center of the story, which alters the ending drastically. I won't give away any spoilers here, but let's just say that each choice concludes the game very differently. Most unfortunately, the game has the most cliched and uninteresting name imaginable. I honestly can't think of a more nondescript name for a fantasy game than Magic Sword. Despite this, it really was a trailblazer of a game for its time, and there really weren't many arcade games like it. I really love this game because it felt more like an adventure game than any other arcade I had ever played. The closest comparison I could make is a side-scrolling version of Gauntlet. It doesn't exactly play like that game, but it sure seems influenced by it. There was just something about it that really caught my attention and enticed me to keep playing until I won. Even if you can only get your hands on the SNES version, the game is still definitely fun, even if you missed out at the time. Crushing through enemies and collecting items is just a blast, even to this day. Just be aware that the arcade is generally better for the 2-player functionality. Either way, I love Magic Sword so much that it became one of my favorite arcade games ever. I consider it a true hidden gem of the era and as a game that was completely overlooked. If you like this review and remember Magic Sword, leave a comment below about the most memorable aspect of the game to you. Also, if you like my videos, please subscribe to my channel and click the bell to be alerted upon the addition of new ones. Please consider supporting my channel via YouTube's Join feature to receive member exclusives such as advanced videos and complete video transcripts.